My name is Jack, and I'm a passionate angler and all-round fish fanatic. In this series of films, I'm trying to track down and catch 100 different species of fish in the British Isles as I fly, see and course fish for a range of weird species. This week, in the penultimate episode of the series, I'm fishing in Cornwall, and I have a hell of a time competing with some dreadful weather, local wildlife stealing fish, and BBC actors closing off fishing spots. Strap yourselves in. I absolutely love rock pooling, and I don't need much of an excuse to do it. I found some worm pipefish, which the mouths are so tiny I wouldn't even bother trying to get them on rod and line. It's just nice to see them. I also got this chunky Montague's crab, which are fairly common on the pools around Falmouth. I did see plenty of Montague's blennies, however, and I did think that I still haven't caught one on rod and line, so I might need to revisit these fish later in this video with a rod. I was hoping for a shore clingfish, but no joy, so I headed off to meet Will Pender. Will is an incredible species angler, and he's always been very generous with his help and time whenever I'm in Cornwall. It's always great to catch up with him and have a chinwag about fish as usual. We were fishing over some sandy patches, and the main target was a lesser weaverfish. Will was saying that they vibrate when you hook them, so you can normally tell if you have one on. Pretty quickly, the fish whisperer himself caught a weaver, which I thought was a good sign. We looked in its mouth, and it had a parasite, an isopod. What these ugly little buggers do is they eat the fish's tongue, and then they replace it, which is pretty gruesome. Will then caught a monster rock goby, and although they aren't generally regarded as a pretty fish, I thought this one was a stunner. Tactics were simple. I used a bit of prawn, slowly dragged over the sand, while Will was on artificials. It was my turn to catch something, and I was delighted to winkle out a couple of weavers. You do have to be careful to resist the urge to grab the fish as you swing it in, as obviously weavers are venomous.
So, Operation Weaver has been alright. We've got a fair few here. Will's caught a few, I've caught a couple. First weaver fish, absolutely chuffed with those. Being very careful not to touch them because you get a very nasty sting from them. But we've got maybe half a dozen in there in 20 minutes, half an hour. So, obviously great to catch loads of those. That's a new species for me. So we'll see what else we can get today.
Thinking about all the Montague's blennies I'd seen earlier, I thought it's got to be worth a go, so we headed back to the rock pools. They always seem to be in the most random and tiny pools. I suppose it's to avoid competition. Will was confident and he spotted one, and I came in using his Tanago rig and I hooked a Montes. They are such beautiful little blennies, and my species hunt was coming along nicely, or so I thought. It was also an exercise for me in terms of sticking it out, as I was ready to go after a couple of minutes, but Will focused me onto the fish, and after 15 minutes of trying, we got it. The whole reason I came down was for a boat trip to get John Dory, but the weather was having none of it, so it got cancelled. That meant I had to come up with a new plan, and I thought I'd go hard for Couch's Bream and Red Bream, of which there's been so many showing this year compared to previous years. I was told Charlestown is a pretty good spot, so I drove there, but that didn't quite go to plan. My plan was to fish one of the harbour arms. However, there was a film crew there. I think it was for Death in Paradise. It's that actor who was in My Family, the older brother. I can't remember his name. Anyway, they wouldn't let anyone onto that harbour arm. So I went onto the other side, but it just didn't look very good. I couldn't see any fish, I wasn't getting any bites, so I was a little bit scuppered. I also fished the inner harbour, which I didn't find out until after is mostly freshwater, so my marine species tally is unlikely to change much. I did see some mullet, but I didn't catch anything, so I then headed to Mevagissey. I absolutely love Mevagissey. It's a beautiful place, but I've not really fished it before. I popped into the aquarium, which is on the harbour side, and it's free to go in, although they of course welcome donations. They have a mixture of species on display, including this chunky conger. I managed a couple of wrasse on the harbour wall, but kept seeing shoals of fish near the surface. I put on some sabikis and I hooked what I'm fairly confident is a sardine, or as the Cornish call them, pilchards. They're the same thing. Not a species I thought about catching, so that was a lovely bonus. If you like your fish like me, then why not get some of my merch? I've got a selection of merch out, from A3 fish posters to playing cards, and an ID book for sale via my website with a link in the description. I really wanted a Kucha's Bream next, but I didn't really have the right gear. I needed some beach casting rods and ideally some ragworm, and I had neither. One thing I will say about Cornwall is it seems to be a bloody desert when it comes to finding ragworm. So few tackle shops have it in, and if you can, I would always suggest taking it with you down there. But that's not an option for me, as I live too far inland, so I had my usual mix of earthworms and maggots. But apart from some shanies and rock gobies down the edge, nothing turned up, so I headed elsewhere. I met Damien Owens and Paul Adams on the harbour side, as they were meant to be on my John Dory boat which got cancelled, so we thought we might as well fish and see if we can tempt a red bream from the shore. The start of the day was okay, with weather windows showing, and we were all catching wrasse, gobies and blennies. A shag, however, had also noticed this, and the little bastard kept coming in to nick our fish. Now, I don't begrudge the bird too much, but I definitely don't want to hook it, and whenever the bird was around, it killed the fishing, as you might expect. We walked up to the other end of Falmouth, and the heavens opened. It was horrendous. I was wet in places I didn't even know I had. We then went to Prince of Wales Pier for some shelter and caught a few small wrasse, and even our old mate the shag came back to say hello.
Oh, Jesus Christ! Fucking thing.
Yo. We thought we'd better call it. So afterwards I went into the Front, which is my favourite pub in Falmouth, and I also grabbed some chips from Harbour Lights to at least try and warm and cheer myself up. However, the story doesn't end here.
Well, I thought my Cornish adventure was over, and then I got a job in Cornwall in October. So in between working, I've got the rod. I'm now in Foy, and I'm just meeting Josh Pickett, who you might remember was in the Blenny video. And this is my last ditch effort to get a red bream, maybe a couple other species. Let's go meet him.
Now, I thought I knew my way around here, but that of course was not true.
Little windy streets in Cornwall. Just trying to find Josh. I think he's around this corner. What's on? All right, you? Obviously thought I knew my way around Foy and obviously didn't. Talking bollocks, I'm an Emmett now. How are we doing?
Yeah, not bad, mate, not bad. Good to see you again.
Good.
My main focus was of course the red bream, but at low tide we thought we'd try for either a dragonet or one of the micro gobies, and to my shock I got my first painted goby.
There we go. Painted goby. I've been after one of these for ages, so we thought we'd just have a quick go in the shallow water. He's got the saddles on the back, which is one way you can tell, and quite a colourful dorsal fin. So yeah, absolutely chuffed to death for that painted goby.
It was looking bleak. My old friend the rain had returned, and we'd been fishing for a couple of hours. The tide started to rise, however, and we were getting little plucky bites, which Josh was convinced were bream. He put his rod down and said I could hit the next bite, and sure enough, it was a red bream.
There it is, red bream. Well, I've struggled like hell to catch one of these things. I nearly didn't take the rod. Josh was like, oh, do you want to take that? I was like, oh, shall I? Go on then. And it's a red bream. I'm chuffed to death for that. It's not a big fish, but I'm so pleased. It's pissing it down. I'm drenched, depressed, elated now I've got this. So fantastic. Not an amazing looking fish particularly, but a new species, so I'm chuffed with that. Get on.
We went on to catch half a dozen more, and think the tide played a big part in this. The reason I was so keen to get one this year is this is the first year that red bream have really showed in large numbers in Cornwall, and I wasn't sure if it was going to be a fluke or not, so I didn't want to miss my chance. They do get much bigger than this, and they're quite impressive when they get to those sizes. There is another species called an auxiliary bream, which looks very similar but is far less common to come across. As is tradition, I had my post-fishing pint to celebrate with what was a challenging but rewarding Cornish session. So I've got 5 species to add to the tally here, including pilchard or sardines, painted goby, Montague's blenny, red bream and lesser weaver. New episodes of the Species Hunt are out each Sunday at 5 PM, and in the last episode of this series I'm heading to the River Wye to fish for chub with my old mate John Bailey.
Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed this vid, why not check out this other video right here? If you can, please subscribe to the channel, only takes a couple of seconds and it really helps me out. I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.